I don't think too many people take a bulletin home with them, sad, because I put my pastor notes in there. And I think actually my pastor notes on the Sunday homily gospel is better than my homily usually. It's succinct. I just like, I spent some time to reflect on it, and I like what happens. Today, or during the month of August, since it's the month of our patron, Bernard, I always put, after the pastor notes, a quote from somebody. But during August, I usually quote from Bernard. And about the third week of August, I think, is this quote. Bernard said, "The three most important virtues are humility, humility, and humility." Those are the three most important virtues. And I think he's right, especially as regards to prayer. This weekend we focus on prayer. And the first reading is a very interesting one. It's kind of a ludicrous story, if you ask me. It's not a good presentation of God. And I don't think God is anything like the God of that first story. But what I like about the story, and what I think the people must have liked when they heard it, was about Abraham. How Abraham was persistent in going to God. There's two kinds of prayer, I suppose. The most basic is just conversation with God, and the other is conversation on a lofty level, like, "Oh, divine Master, merciful Lord, God of the universe," who, you go on with all those words. But they're both conversations. But Abraham had ordinary conversation. Now God, again, this is a presentation of God. He kind of looks like us. He's indecisive, keeps changing his mind, allows himself to be influenced by Abraham. So God says to Abram, I'm going to come down and destroy this place called Sodom. It's a mess. Not only am I going to wipe out the place, but everybody in it. It's over. So Abraham says, "Oh, wait. What if I could find 50 people? Would you not do it?" Says God. Well, I guess not. So Abraham goes, looks for 50 people, can't find them. Comes back and says, "Oh, God, forgive me for bringing this up again, but if I take 5 out, what about 45? If I can find 45, will you save the place?" So God, indecisive again, okay, I guess so. He goes, he comes back. "Oh, don't get upset with me, God. I'm really sorry about this, but what about 30? Same thing. He comes back again. "Oh, Lord, please don't lose patience with me. What about 25? He works him all the way down to 10, and he can't find even 10. So God eventually will wipe out Sodom, the whole place, and everybody in it. I don't think that's like God. But the persistence of Abraham is just amazing. And then that is mentioned in the gospel. So in the gospel, Jesus went off to pray, and the disciples noticed it. They're watching him. And so when he comes back, one of them had the nerve to go up and say, "Jesus, why don't you teach us how to pray just like John taught his disciples?" So he basically says the Our Father, the shortened version. Matthew is the fuller version. And he says, when you pray, say this, "Father who are in heaven," blah, 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 blah. But then Jesus attaches to it an understanding about prayer. And if I had to say in one word, the thing that he says is most important in prayer is persistence. Persistence. So he tells this remarkable story. He says, this man went to bed, all of his family, and in those days, in these poor little huts, they'd bring in the chickens and the pigs and everything in the house with them, and they slept on the floor. And when the lights, when the dark was outside and they blew out the candles, that was it. They're in for the night. So this man comes over after the lights are all out and the people are in bed. So the man inside, "Oh God, who is this?" And he recognizes his neighbor's voice. "Hey, can you help me out with some bread? I have some visitors and I don't have any bread." And he says, "Go home, leave me alone. Everybody's in bed." To get up, everybody had to get up. You had to step over people. It was a mess. "Go home. I need some bread." I said no. I can do this all day, okay? And finally, Jesus says, the man will get up and help him, not because they're friends. That would be a reason, but it's because he's persistent. He says, this guy ain't going away. That's why he'll get up. And then he says further, this is how you're to be persistent. Ask, and you will receive. Knock, the door will be open to you. Seek, and you shall find. And the one who asks, he repeats it. Persist, persist, persist. Keep at it. But there's more to it than that. There's more to it. This is where Bernard's advice comes in very clear. The three most important virtues are humility, humility, and humility. We got to pray with humility. I'm going to tell you someone who I think did not pray with humility. I don't know. I don't know the person, never met the person. I can't judge anybody's soul, anybody's, but you can judge actions. And it's this guy that on Thursday killed his father, killed his older brother, shot and tried to kill his mother. Apparently he didn't have good aim there. Then went off and killed two other strangers. And they had a wild manhunt and they caught him. Now, apart from the fact that everything he did was absolutely ugly and evil, I can't judge his soul, but his actions. But I will say this, and I'd lay money on it. I would say this man, his spirit was as flabby and fat and undeveloped and underdeveloped as possible. I'm going to say he spiritually was a wipeout. He didn't do the spiritual work that's required to have a huge and loving spirit. You don't just have one. You build it. You work it. It's like going into a gym spiritually, and you work out, and you build your spirit. And at the bottom of it all, you have to have humility. Now, when I came here 8 years ago, it was 2011, some things happened to me. I don't know what St. Bernard's did to me, what you people did to me, but something. 2015, I picked up the LA Times. Now, there was a famous pastor in the diocese many years ago who used to say this. He said, every Sunday when I go in to preach, I always take two things into the pulpit with me, my Bible and the LA Times. And he said, you can't preach if you don't have that LA Times. You got to know what's going on because we got to get God into all that stuff. So, 2015, I pick up the paper and LA Times, and I'm reading about this. I'm not going to read it here from my faithful little phone, but it just the title. NASA probe sends pictures of an object 4 billion miles. 4 billion miles from the sun. If you don't know what 4 billion is, think of this. What if I were to give you today, not one, not two, not three, but $4 billion? Would you like that? Now we know what it is. 4 billion miles from the sun, Pluto. And I read that on that day that I'm reading the paper, it was that day or the day before, a spacecraft that we had built on this planet, on this earth, in this country, went from here flying at 8 miles a second. For 9.5 years, 8 miles a second. And it finally arrived, and the first pictures were coming back. This place, Pluto, 4 billion miles from the sun. Now, I didn't actually fall on my knees, but spiritually inside I fell on my knees, and I just said the most intelligent thing I could think of. Wow! That was my response. Wow! OMG! 4 billion miles, 9.5 years flying at 8 miles a second? Now, it doesn't take a whole bunch of humility to stop in your tracks and appreciate that, but it takes some. And to say, God, you are the God of that space, 4 billion miles. That's only 1/2 of the side from the sun of our galaxy. That's not even the whole galaxy, and they say there's over 1 million. Actually, I've read there's over 2 million galaxies. Galaxies, not stars, galaxies. Between ourselves and the sun, I understand there's only 2 stars, Alpha G and Alpha R or something. I don't know what they're called. You can find out. Don't do it, look it up now, but you can look it up later. And all the rest is just space. Do we have any concept of how huge this is? And I don't know about you, but it demands of me simple humility to say, oh my God, you are huge, God. You are huge. Now, in that place inside of us that we call spirit is where we're supposed to appreciate that. You see, my mind knows what the number 4 billion means. So I can say 4 billion miles from the sun, 9.5 years flying 8 miles a second. I got the knowledge. But it's just knowledge. And I suppose there's feelings attached. Some people get giggly about something like that. 9.5 years at 8 miles a second. Ooh, that's fun. That's fun. But it's when I take it down to the Spirit, where my deepest beliefs, where my questions about the universe. You see, 20 years ago, I maybe would have been excited by this, but I don't know why I wasn't. If you told me things about science, I was bored. It just didn't go in. I don't know why at this time in my life, maybe because I'm at the latter end of my life, that these things really matter. And when I say the universe is ginormous, 50 times more than that, I just stand in awe. And it's that place where we have to deal with life. Now, I tell you, that young man wasn't doing much down there. He wasn't. How do you kill your father, your older brother, and try to kill your mother and 2 other people you don't know? You've not been standing humbly before God in the universe and asking any questions. But if you do, you begin to form deep, deep truths like life is sacred. When you believe it in your spirit, that's different than just saying, oh yeah, life is sacred. No, life is sacred. The earth is sacred. When you believe that the earth is sacred, you don't walk outside from the liquor store, take the wrapper off the ice cream and throw it on the floor. You don't do it. Not if you believe in your spirit that the earth is sacred. You say, where's the trash can? And if there isn't one, you go back into the store and say, you really should have a trash can out there because people are just throwing things on the ground. This earth is sacred. We shouldn't be doing that. Could you please bring a trash can out here? This man had such disregard for life. Maybe he was totally unbalanced. I don't know. Maybe he was high on something, but still, kill your father, try to kill your mother, your brother, and 2 strangers? What is wrong? And the reason this is so urgent, and I mean urgent, how far are any of us away from that? How is he there? And then as if that's not enough, I continue reading in the paper. I already had enough bad news for the week. And the second to the last page, I see this article that I had heard on the radio the day before too. A man with a bat beat up a homeless person. I mean, my God, this person's homeless. Their life is already a mess. And then they have to deal with somebody with a bat beating them up? What's wrong with that bat beater? What is wrong? I say their spirit is flabby, undeveloped, and nothing is going on inside. But if they ever approach what they've done with humility, I guarantee you they'll hurt. I guarantee you if they ever face with humility, stand before the God of the universe, stand in their nothingness, which is all of us, we're like a speck of dust in this universe, and say, oh my God, I beat a man with a bat. I killed my father and my brother and tried to kill my mother. And in the poverty, humility of that spirit, now that's where something real can happen. That's why we come here, it seems to me, on Sundays. It has little to do with God. It has everything to do with our spirit. That we can listen to our God in the universe, in the Word, in sacrament, in one another, and in humility, 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 take it in and say, Lord, wow, share your gift and your grace and your life and your spirit and your light with me. Show me the way. Because only with humility, humility, humility will we let it in. And maybe if we have enough humility, 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 we'll work it, we'll reflect on it, we'll process it, and in that process, we will find life.